Vórtices del Misterio Podcast. Hoy, Don Decker, el hombre lluvia.
You know, we've done some deep dives on some pretty wild stuff, but this one takes the cake.
Oh, yeah.
The case of Don Decker, the guy who could seemingly make it rain indoors.
I mean, when I first heard about this case, I was like, come on, is this for real?
Right.
But then you dig into the witness accounts, and it's not just like one or two people. It's police officers, a prison warden.
A reverend.
Exactly. People you wouldn't expect to be making this stuff up.
So let's back up a bit for people who might not know the story.
Okay.
It's 1983, Don Decker, this young guy. He's on furlough from jail so he can attend his grandfather's funeral.
Okay.
But here's the thing. This grandfather, well, it's been said that he was abusive towards Don.
Oh, wow. So you've got this really heavy emotional backdrop, right?
Exactly. You've got the grief, but also this potential trauma bubbling beneath the surface.
And some researchers believe that kind of extreme emotional state, particularly when it involves trauma, can sometimes trigger these really unusual phenomena.
Okay, so we're already in kind of a weird headspace, right? So after the funeral, Don, he goes back to his friend's house, this couple, Ron and Romaine Van Wy,
Okay.
to kind of collect himself. You know, he's there with another couple, Bob and Jeannie Kiefer, and they're all just hanging out when things start to get a little strange.
A little strange. From what I read, things got downright bizarre.
Oh, yeah, things get weird and wet.
Like, how wet are we talking here?
Think sudden downpour inside the house?
Inside the house. Like a leak or something.
That's what they thought at first, right? Ron Van Why the homeowner? He figures it's got to be a plumbing issue.
Makes sense.
But the thing is, the water, it's not just dripping, it's pouring from the ceiling, the walls.
Okay, that's a little more than a drip.
And some witnesses even describe water bubbling up from the floorboards like it's coming from some underground spring.
That's definitely not your average plumbing problem.
No kidding.
So what do? Call a plumber?
Well, they actually end up calling the police.
The police? For a plumbing issue?
Hey, when water's coming out of your walls and floor, you call whoever you think can help, right?
I guess so. So the police show up expecting like a burst pipe or something, and what do they find?
Okay, so two officers respond, Richard Wolbert and John Beaujean, and they both describe the scene as totally unbelievable.
Unbelievable how? Like, what are they saying?
Well, Officer Beaujean, he uses the phrase, "couldn't believe my eyes," in his report. He even said he felt a chill run down his spine.
Like a sixth sense kind of thing.
Yeah, and his hair stood up on the back of his neck, and Officer Wolbert, he describes being absolutely pelted by this downpour.
Okay, so it's not just a few drips we're talking about.
Nope, this is a full-on indoor rainstorm, and these are police officers. We're talking about people who have seen their fair share of strange stuff.
You'd think they'd be used to anything, but this clearly shook them up.
Right. It's like even they couldn't explain it away as just some ordinary event.
So if seasoned police officers are freaked out, you know, something truly strange is going down. And this is just the beginning.
Oh, this is where things get really wild.
Even wilder. How is that even possible?
Because the rain, it seems to follow Don.
What do you mean? Like it follows him wherever he goes?
That's exactly what it seems like.
Yeah.
They decide to move him across the street to a pizzeria, thinking maybe a change of scenery will help.
A pizzeria. That's an interesting choice.
Right, like maybe some fresh air and a slice will break the spell or something.
So did it work?
Well, you're going to have to wait for part 2 to find out. So did the pizza and fresh air work? Not quite.
Oh man, this rain really followed him, huh?
It's like it was attached to him or something.
Okay, now that's just creepy.
Right. So they get to the pizzeria, right? And this is where we meet another witness who adds a whole other layer to this whole thing.
Okay, who are we talking about?
The pizzeria owner, Pam Scrofano.
Okay, and what does she have to say?
Well, she sees the rain dripping onto a pizza, right, ruining a perfectly good meal.
Oh no, not the pizza.
But it's more than that. She describes Don as being in a trance with this distant look in his eyes.
Okay, so maybe he's not all there mentally or something.
And here's where it gets even weirder. She claims that when she touched him with a crucifix, a burn mark appeared on his skin.
A burn mark?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, and not just any burn mark. It was in the shape of the cross.
Okay, hold on a second. Now we're getting into like supernatural territory here.
Right. What do you even do with that kind of detail?
Well, some people might see it as evidence of demonic possession. You know, physical manifestation of good versus evil.
Yeah, I could see that, but it's still a lot to wrap your head around.
Oh, definitely. But there are other explanations, too. Maybe the burn was psychosomatic. You know, manifestation of Don's own guilt or trauma.
It's definitely a detail that makes you think twice.
No kidding. So what happens next? Does the rain follow him back to the house?
You better believe it. They take him back, and that's when things go from strange to completely unbelievable.
Unbelievable how? What else could possibly happen at this point?
Well, for starters, witnesses start describing objects moving on their own, like furniture sliding around the room.
Like a poltergeist?
That's what it sounds like, right? But then it gets even crazier because there are accounts of Don levitating.
Levitating? You mean like floating in the air?
Yep. A few feet off the ground, according to some witnesses.
Okay, now that's just impossible.
And yet multiple people claim to have seen it.
I don't even know what to say at this point. It's like something out of a movie.
I know, right? But remember, this isn't just one person's word. We're talking about multiple witnesses, including the police officers.
So even the skeptics are starting to come around.
Well, not all of them, but even the police chief who initially dismissed the whole thing as a plumbing issue, he has a strange experience.
What happened?
Yeah.
Did he see Don levitate too?
No, but he was standing in the Kiefer's kitchen and his shirt suddenly became soaking wet.
Out of nowhere.
Yep. No rain falling at that moment, no burst pipes, no explanation whatsoever.
Okay, so even the police chief has to admit something weird is going on.
Right. It's like something targeted him specifically.
So what about Don? Does he ever snap out of this trance?
Well, his furlough ends and he has to go back to jail.
Oh, man, so it ends there.
You'd think so, right? But the rain, it seems it followed Don back to jail.
Wait, are you serious? Even in jail?
That's right. We're about to enter the world of prison cells and paranormal downpours. So we're back in the slammer, and the rain, it seems, has followed Don right back to his cell.
Talk about a captive audience.
Right. Like, what are the odds?
And the report suggests Don's in a weird place mentally. You know, he's anxious, bored, probably still trying to process everything that went down at the house and the pizzeria.
Can you imagine?
And then he starts to wonder, like, can I make this rain happen again?
It's like he's discovered he's got a superpower.
Except instead of super strength, it's making it rain indoors.
Right. Not exactly the most useful superpower.
Well, tell that to the prison guard who thought Don was pulling a fast one.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
So this guard, he hears about the rain in Don's cell, and he's like, yeah, right, I've heard it all,
Skeptical much.
Totally. And he challenges Don. He says, if you can really do this, make it rain in the warden's office.
Now that's bold.
Well, the warden Keenhold, he walks into his office a little while later, and guess what?
Let me guess. It's raining men.
Not quite, but his shirt is soaking wet.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously. And I'm not talking about a little damp here. I mean drenched.
Talk about a bad day at the office.
You can say that again. So the warden, he freaks out, understandably. And who does he call?
Ghostbusters.
Close, but not quite. He calls the prison chaplain, Reverend William Blackburn.
I remember you saying he was a skeptic at first.
Oh, yeah. Reverend Blackburn wasn't about to believe every ghost story he heard.
So what changed his mind?
Well, he goes to see Don Wright, who's back in that trance-like state.
Yeah.
And suddenly the air in the room, it changes.
Like a cold chill.
Colder. And there's this smell. Reverend Blackburn describes it as this foul odor, like death and decay.
Okay, that's just creepy.
And then the rain starts again, but this time it's different. He describes it as the devil's rain, this fine mist that fills the entire room.
And that's when Reverend Blackburn, the skeptic, he becomes a believer.
It seems so. He later said he felt this overwhelming sense of evil, like he was confronting something truly dark and powerful.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
And get this, he instinctively tries to shield himself with his Bible.
His Bible?
Yeah, and he later noticed that while everything else in the room was wet, the pages of his Bible were completely dry.
Okay, now that's just eerie.
So the rain eventually stops. Don snaps out of his trance and everything goes quiet. Reverend Blackburn took it as a sign that whatever was there, whatever was influencing Don, it was gone.
Just like that. So what happened to Don after that?
He finished his sentence, and there were no more reports of strange occurrences.
So what are we left with?
A whole lot of questions. We've got eyewitness accounts, detailed descriptions of these impossible events, but no real explanation.
Right. Was it demonic possession? Poltergeists? Some kind of extreme psychological phenomenon?
Or maybe it was all just an elaborate hoax.
Yeah, but if it was a hoax, it was one heck of a performance to convince that many people, including police officers, a prison warden, and a reverend.
Exactly. That's the thing about this case. It stays with you. It makes you question what you think you know about the world.
It really does. Well, folks, it seems like we've reached the end of another deep dive, and this one has left us with more questions than answers.
But isn't that what makes these stories so fascinating? The mystery, the unknown, It's a reminder that there's still so much out there that we don't understand.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll have the answers to these mysteries. But until then, we'll keep exploring the strange and the unexplained right here on The Deep Dive.